The ground shook under the weight of plasma artillery, each thunderclap a reminder that this wasn't a drill or simulation. It was war, real, ugly, and far from over. Corporal Quinn Ryman's boots slid across the muddy incline as he ducked behind the shattered remains of what used to be a solar relay station. His pulse pounded in his ears, louder than the screaming winds of the planet Varnok 7. He wiped the grime from his forehead with a shaking hand, then adjusted the sling of his rifle. His right side was soaked with blood his own, but he hadn't had time to check the damage. There wasn't time for anything beyond surviving the next 30 seconds. Across the field, a bolt of red plasma crackled through the air and vaporized a chunk of terrain 5 feet from him. Quinn ducked lower, teeth clenched. "Ryman, you alive?" came the shout over the comm. "Still breathing, Griggs," Quinn answered, voice strained. "But I'm pinned." "Got hit bad. Can you move?" "Not fast, but I can shoot." Another bolt exploded nearby, sending up a plume of dust. Quinn leaned around the corner of the relay wreckage, eyes narrowing behind his visor. He saw the enemy, at least 3 of them, moving toward his position. Tall, armored, insectoid bipeds in dark ceramite plating. The Dravari, he squeezed the trigger. The rifle kicked against his shoulder, sending a burst of kinetic rounds into the lead Dravari. The alien dropped with a hiss, its armor sparking. The others scattered. "Still got it," Quinn muttered. From his left, movement caught his eye. Another Dravari emerged from the smoke, but this one wasn't charging. It was crouched low, watching, calculating. Its armor was lighter, sleeker, and it held a blade instead of a cannon. A scout, maybe, or worse, one of their elite. Quinn shifted to aim, but a sharp spike of pain lanced through his side. He gasped and nearly dropped the rifle. He looked down and saw the problem. The blast had torn through his outer armor and sliced deep into his waist. Blood was seeping fast, dark and thick. The Dravari soldier saw it too. It tilted its head, confused, cautious. Then something unexpected happened. Instead of attacking immediately, the alien moved closer slowly, like it was trying to understand what it was seeing. Quinn, still gripping his rifle with shaking hands, stared back. "You waiting for me to pass out?" he growled. "Not happening." The Dravari took another step, blade still raised but not striking. Its eyes, sleek and dark, locked on the growing pool beneath Quinn's knee. "You think I'm done?" Quinn hissed. "I've fought with worse than this." He lifted the rifle again, though his vision blurred at the edges. The alien hesitated, then Quinn fired. The shot went wide, hitting the ground near the alien's feet. It darted backward, then vanished into the smoke. Quinn collapsed against the relay wreckage, breathing hard. His fingers trembled. He tapped his comm. "Griggs, I'm hit bad, might pass out." "Stay with me, Ryman. Medevac's en route. 5 minutes." "Feels like 5 years," Quinn muttered. His helmet's interior display flickered. Vital stats were dropping. Blood pressure low. Oxygen saturation dipping. He pressed a packet of coagulant foam to the wound and bit down hard as it hissed and burned. From the haze emerged the same Dravari. Again, it didn't attack. It stood at a distance, watching, its blade lowered slightly. "What are you waiting for?" Quinn rasped. "Just finish it." The alien didn't move. It looked at the blood-soaked ground, then at Quinn, then back again. The expression, if it could be called that, wasn't gloating. It was confused. Quinn forced a humorless laugh. "Never seen someone bleed and keep fighting, huh?" he coughed, and blood flecked his visor. The pain was blooming now, white-hot and unbearable. But he kept his weapon aimed, finger on the trigger. The Dravari took a step forward. Quinn's rifle clicked empty. The alien paused. Its blade lifted again, but not to strike, more like a warning. Then came the roar of engines overhead. Dropship thrusters. The Dravari retreated into the smoke just as the medevac landed behind Quinn, kicking up dust and debris. 2 medics in hardsuits leapt out and rushed to him. "Hold still," one shouted, already activating a field drape. "Got a bleeder," the other said. "We need to stabilize." Quinn didn't argue. He felt himself going under as the pain finally won. When he woke, he was in a field tent, surrounded by soft beeping and the sterile scent of antiseptic. His side felt like it had been chewed by a bear. A dull, throbbing ache pulsed with every heartbeat. "Easy," said a voice beside him. He turned his head. Lieutenant Kessler stood by the cot, arms crossed. "You're lucky." "Another inch and you'd be missing a kidney." "Feels like I don't have one now," Quinn muttered. "You lost over a liter of blood. We patched the artery and gave you a transfusion. You'll be off the line for weeks." Quinn closed his eyes. Kessler continued. "The medics said you were still shooting while half your guts were hanging out. I wasn't about to let some alien knife me in the dirt. You pissed it off enough to run away." Quinn blinked. "No, it didn't run. It watched, like it didn't understand why I was still fighting." Kessler frowned. "You sure?" "Dead sure." Kessler didn't reply at first then. "We've been intercepting chatter. The Dravari have a word they keep using, something like Vrasha. We think it means unbroken." Quinn grunted. "Sounds flattering. Maybe not. Some of the intercepts suggest they're disturbed by it, by us. Fighting even when we should be down, bleeding and still pulling triggers. I'm not special," Quinn said. "Any of us would have done the same." "Maybe that's what scares them." Quinn looked away. His side ached like hell. He shifted carefully, every movement a reminder of how close it had been. Later that night, while the tent was quiet and the pain meds dulled the edge, Quinn stared at the ceiling and thought about the Dravari scout. He hadn't seen pity or mercy in its face, just confusion. A kind of alien dissonance. The next morning, he was transferred to a recovery dome where he started physical therapy with a grim-faced specialist named Marlowe. 6 weeks minimum, she said as she adjusted the resistance bands. "If you're lucky." "Guess I better be lucky then," Quinn said through gritted teeth. Every rep was agony. The wound had sliced through muscle and nicked bone. Scar tissue was already forming and flexibility was going to be a long battle. But he did the exercises every day without fail. 2 weeks in, he was cleared to walk without assistance. By week 4, he was jogging. At 6 weeks and 2 days, he reported to Kessler for reassignment. "You're pushing it," Kessler warned. "I'm ready." She looked at him, then nodded slowly. "All right. You'll redeploy with Squad Echo." Forward Operating Zone, Sector 9. Quinn slung his rifle over his shoulder and gave a tight nod. Good to be back. He was on world again within 48 hours. The new sector was hotter, drier, and more exposed. The Dravari were more aggressive here, testing perimeter defenses daily. And then, on the 3rd night, during a patrol sweep near the canyon ridges, Quinn saw him, same armor, same blade, same unreadable expression. "Contact," he barked, raising his rifle. The Dravari didn't charge, it stood still, watching him. Quinn kept his weapon trained. "You again," the alien tilted its head. "We can do this the hard way," Quinn said, "but I'm not bleeding this time." The alien stepped back once, then turned and vanished into the rocks. Quinn didn't chase. Instead, he reported the sighting, then sat down behind cover and stared at the spot where the Dravari had stood. He didn't understand it, but part of him, some stubborn, battered part, felt they'd passed some kind of test. Or maybe started one. Either way, he wasn't backing down. The sun on Varnok 7 was a dull, bloated thing, more like a dying coal than a proper star, and it never truly set, just hovered low on the horizon like it had forgotten how to rise. Quinn Ryman crouched in a shallow depression of shale and dust, sweat streaking down the back of his neck despite the prevailing chill. His new squad, Echo, had fanned out across the canyon ridge above, watching for movement. The rocks below were jagged and pale, the kind that splintered underfoot and echoed too loud when you shifted your weight wrong. He stayed still. The air was dry enough to crack lips. His side ached, but he didn't touch it. The med team had done a good job, no infection, no rupture, but the muscles were still knitting themselves back together. He'd pushed through rehab faster than recommended, not because he wanted to be a hero, but because he couldn't stand being still. Motion dulled the memory. A soft crunch behind him made him pivot slowly. Griggs lowered himself beside him, breath controlled. Echo 9 spotted movement on the eastern ridge, nothing conclusive. Same profile, Griggs nodded. He passed over a compact drone feed unit. The screen showed a grainy outline, tall, angled limbs, blade holstered along the spine, not charging, just lingering. "They're watching us watch them," Quinn muttered. "They've been doing that for 3 days." Quinn wiped a layer of grit from his visor. "They're not probing the line or testing defenses, they're observing. Maybe they're studying our tactics or our pain tolerance." Griggs exhaled sharply but didn't offer a joke. He knew better. They both remembered what the evac team found. Quinn, pale as a corpse, still conscious. Still with a finger on the trigger. "Let me guess," Quinn said. "Intel still has no clue what they want." "Not a shred. Half the analysts think they're looking for a weakness, other half thinks they're trying to avoid provoking us." Quinn leaned forward, elbows on his thighs. "They already shot first, they're the provocation." "Yeah, well, doesn't mean they're happy about it." A low vibration thrummed through the rock beneath them, not loud but rhythmic. "Familiar, crawler coming," Quinn said. The light armored vehicle trundled into view between 2 ravines, its treads kicking up a veil of dust. One of the rookies from Echo hopped off the back, carrying a case. "Corporal Ryman," she called, jogging lightly. He stood, package from command. "Says it's for field experimentation." He took the case, popped the seals. Inside were 4 cylindrical canisters labeled with hazard icons and scrawled notes in shaky handwriting. "What is it?" Griggs asked. Quinn read the attached document. "Human blood, uncoagulated. Preserved in stasis gel." Griggs blinked. "We're mailing them our fluids now," not mailing, placing. "Command wants to see how they react to it. They're trying to bait the Dravari with blood samples, not bait. A reaction test. They want to know if the sight of our blood triggers something." Griggs frowned. "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard," Quinn shrugged. "If they think we're immune to pain, maybe they treat our blood like poison." He resealed the case and slung it over his shoulder. Griggs gestured to the ridge. "You going to plant it?" "Yeah, south outcropping. They've been showing up there the most. Want backup?" "No, if this goes sideways, I don't want anyone else in the blast radius." Quinn moved alone across the uneven terrain, staying low. The outcropping jutted into a narrow gorge, with a sheer drop on one side and a wall of volcanic rock on the other. He set the case down and began placing the canisters in a triangular pattern, 10 meters apart. Each had a small emitter attached, generating a faint thermal pulse to mimic a fresh wound. He stepped back, waited. Nothing happened for 5 minutes. At minute 6, a shadow peeled away from the rocks across the gorge. Quinn didn't reach for his weapon. He stood, hands at his sides. The Dravari scout approached slowly, blade sheathed. It moved with a strange hesitation, like it wasn't sure what to make of the setup. The alien paused near the first canister, its head tilting slightly. Then it crouched, examined the emitter, and reached out. The moment its fingers touched the gel cylinder, it jerked back sharply, not in pain, in revulsion. It staggered 2 steps away, turned its head toward Quinn, and stared. Quinn didn't move. The alien didn't speak. It never spoke, but its posture said enough. It was breathing faster. Shoulders drawn tight. Its gaze flicked between the canisters, then back to Quinn. He said nothing, just watched. The Dravari stepped closer to him, slowly, carefully. Its blade remained holstered. When it was within 10 meters, it stopped. Quinn met its gaze. "You're afraid of it." The alien didn't react. "You think we're broken inside, that we spill and keep going, still no reaction. Maybe we are." The Dravari tilted its head slightly again. Then, without warning, it reached into a compartment on its armor and pulled out a small, irregular object. It tossed it underhand toward him. Quinn caught it. It was a stone. Smooth, dark, with a single pale stripe carved down the center. He frowned. "What is this?" The alien turned and vanished into the rocks, leaving the canisters behind. Quinn stared at the stone in his hand. It was warm. Back at camp, he handed it over to Echo's comms officer, who ran it through the translator matrix. After an hour, she called him over. "It's not a message, not exactly." "What is it?" "A record, like a personal log, but organic. They embed memories in things like this." "It's meant to be held." Quinn picked it up again. The warmth intensified, then he felt it. Pain, not his own, something deeper. Broken bone, torn muscle, a high keening sound that wasn't human. It lasted only a few seconds, but it left him gasping. He dropped the stone. That wasn't a threat, the comms officer said quietly. That was a confession. Quinn stared at the object, now inert on the desk. Next morning, he was summoned to a debrief with a civilian xenopsychologist recently assigned to their forward station. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. They're not used to enemies surviving trauma, she said. Their species evolved a different response to injury. Their soldiers are trained to retreat or self-destruct if critically wounded. It's seen as logical, efficient. We're not. No, and that's the problem. You didn't follow the script. Quinn folded his arms. So what does that make me to them? An anomaly, a contradiction. I didn't do anything special. You didn't stop fighting, he leaned back in his chair. So what now? We're initiating controlled exposure. They'll keep watching. We'll keep bleeding. That sounds optimistic. It's not about optimism, it's about understanding. Quinn left the tent and returned to the ridge. Later that day, around what passed for evening on Varnok 7, he sat alone on the outcropping again. No canisters, no emitters, just him. He took off one glove, unwrapped the bandage from his side, and let the air hit the healing scar. It was red, uneven, still sore when the Dravari came this time. It didn't approach, it just watched. Then it raised a hand, not a wave, but something close, and slowly touched its own side. Then it turned and disappeared into the dust. Quinn exhaled, not peace, but something else, recognition. Quinn sat with his back against the outcrop, knees drawn up, helmet off. The ridge was quiet, apart from the low thrum of wind threading through the canyons. Echo Squad was 2 clicks north, running a sweep pattern. He'd volunteered to stay behind and monitor the southern gaps. No one questioned it. He rolled up his shirt and peeled away the fresh dressing. The scar was a raw, uneven slash crossing his right flank, dark pink against pale skin. It was healing slower than expected. The medics blamed the strain from early redeployment, but there wasn't much choice. You healed or you got replaced. Quinn wasn't in the mood for either. He sprayed a thin layer of antiseptic over the wound. It burned. His jaw clenched. The stone lay beside him on the rock, the one the Dravari had given him. He hadn't touched it again since the first time, not because he was afraid of what it would show, but because he didn't want to get used to it. He didn't want to start thinking of them as storytellers. A faint scrape echoed from the ravine below. Quinn reached for his rifle but didn't raise it. The same Dravari, taller than the others, with a long diagonal crack in its shoulder plating, appeared over the ridge's edge. It didn't climb, just stood there, one hand resting against the stone. You don't sneak well, Quinn said. The Dravari didn't reply. It never did. But it stepped forward slowly, then angled its torso slightly and dropped something onto the ground. A soft clink of metal. Quinn didn't move. What is that? The creature stepped back. Quinn stood and approached. The object was a human medkit, one of theirs. Scuffed, dented, but intact. He turned it over. His own initials were scratched faintly into the lid. This was in the canyon. I left it behind during evac. The Dravari didn't nod but remained still. You kept it? No response. Quinn opened the kit. The contents were untouched. Gauze, coagulant, sealant spray, injectors all still in place, but something else had been added. A thin strip of synthetic sinew, braided and knotted, not human. You left this in it, he said. The Dravari took a step closer. Its eyes, black and flat, watched his every movement. You think I'm going to understand what this means? It crouched and drew a line in the dust with 2 fingers. Then it tapped the braid, then the line again. Quinn crouched opposite. This is a symbol. You're trying to say? What? That we're on the same line. That we're connected. The Dravari's fingers moved again. Another line, this time broken in the middle. It tapped the braid again, then pointed to the first line. You're saying the braid healed something broken. Silence. Quinn leaned closer. You think returning this fixes something? The creature didn't flinch. Quinn stared at it for a long moment, then sat back on the rock. I thought you were just watching us to figure out how to kill us more efficiently. The Dravari tilted its head. You have no idea why we don't stop, do you? There was no answer. Quinn reached into the medkit, pulled out the coagulant foam. "This stuff here, it burns like hell, but it saves lives. We don't use it because it's easy. We use it because we want to walk again, fight again." "Get home." The Dravari's gaze remained fixed on the foam. "You think it's madness, bleeding and pushing forward, but it's not madness, it's intent." He pulled up his shirt again, revealing the scar. "This hurt. Still does, but I didn't stop. You saw that." "You didn't understand then." The Dravari moved closer slowly and pointed at the scar, not touching, just indicating. Then it pressed a hand to its own side, mimicking the location. "You've been wounded there too." The alien's fingers opened slightly, palm up. Quinn hesitated, then placed the braid back into its hand. The Dravari closed its fist around it. They sat in silence for a while, the wind shifting grit across the rocks. Eventually Quinn stood. "I need to rejoin my squad." The Dravari didn't follow. Quinn turned away, then paused. "You're not our enemy anymore, are you?" No answer. But the creature didn't disappear into the canyon either. That night, back at field camp, the squad was quiet. Griggs was cleaning his weapon. Marlowe was updating the mission logs. Kessler was off comms entirely, buried in command reports. Quinn sat alone outside the HAB unit, staring at the ridge. The braid still lingered in his mind, not a gift, a message. The next morning, a request came in from Central Command. A diplomatic envoy, not a formal one, but something close, wanted to send a non-combatant observer to the Dravari perimeter. Quinn was on the list of candidates. He read the request twice. When Griggs saw him staring at the tablet, he leaned over. "You're not going to say yes. They want someone who's had direct interaction, who's proven survivability. They mean someone who didn't die bleeding." Quinn stood. "I'll go," Griggs blinked. "You're serious?" "I want to know what they think they're doing." A shuttle dropped him off near the southern canyon by late afternoon. The air was still, the sun low and red behind the cliffs. Quinn carried no weapons, just a medkit, a water pouch, and a thin translation node clipped to his collar. He waited. An hour passed. Then two, finally, 3 Dravari emerged from the gorge. The one he recognized was in front. They stopped 10 meters away. Quinn raised a hand. "You called this meeting. I'm here." The lead Dravari approached. It held something, a small crystalline object, almost translucent. It placed it on the ground and stepped back. Quinn picked it up. Memories again. But this time not pain, determination. A soldier Dravari dragging a comrade across a battlefield, refusing to abandon them. Holding pressure over a wound, refusing to retreat. Quinn exhaled slowly. "You've had soldiers like us." The Dravari didn't move. "You just forgot them." He set the crystal down gently. "We bleed to keep each other standing, that's all." "That's the whole reason." The Dravari turned and walked away. Quinn didn't follow. 2 days later, he submitted a formal report. The Dravari were not seeking surrender nor peace, but understanding. A recalibration. They'd seen something in human persistence that mirrored their own past, something buried beneath generations of cold efficiency. Quinn's report concluded with a single sentence: "They fear us because we remind them what they lost." The envoy mission was suspended indefinitely. Quinn returned to Echo, resumed patrols, and never saw the cracked-shouldered Dravari again. But every now and then, during a quiet shift, he'd find a braid of sinew left on the rocks. Always the same knot, always in the same place. He never took them. He didn't need to. They weren't for him. They were for anyone who bled and kept walking.